In popular imagination, nomadic peoples throughout history have always been seen as eternal enemies and even subjected to dehumanizing portrayals, depicted wearing fierce masks and bearing two terrifying fangs much like in the movie Mulan. But history tells us that the relationship between nomadic and sedentary peoples has always been deeply intertwined, with each shaping and influencing the other. As our title suggests, Qin Shi Huang could also be considered the founding father of the Xiongnu. Before diving into the love-hate relationship between the Qin-Han Empire and the Xiongnu Empire, we must first dispel some old myths. Many historians of the 19th century believed, and many people still believe today, that nomadism was a primitive and barbaric form of society, and that nomadic societies appeared before agricultural civilizations and eventually evolved into them. However, archaeological and historical findings in the 20th century have overturned this view. In fact, not only did nomadic societies emerge later than agricultural societies, but specialized nomadism was a highly sophisticated way of life and production that required a high level of knowledge and technical skills. Through nomadism, humans were able to survive on lands with extremely scarce resources, making the most efficient use of limited vegetation and water sources. Experts on nomadic history, such as Thomas Barfield, believe that the initial formation of the nomadic economy in Eurasia was related to the increasingly cold and dry climate change from 2000 to 1000 BC. To combat the climate change, people made use of the already increasingly scarce resources and began expanding the scale of animal husbandry and the range of their grazing. It is worth noting that the emergence of a nomadic economy did not necessarily mean the formation of a nomadic society. During this period, people still relied primarily on agriculture and engaged in a variety of livelihoods. It was not until after 1000 BC, when horses began to be used as riding animals, that human mobility significantly increased, making a form of society highly dependent on the nomadic economy truly possible. However, the process of nomadization was not completed overnight. In the 8th century BC, the Rong tribes to the west and the Di tribes to the north of ancient China were all not yet fully nomadic peoples, but rather semi-agricultural and semi-pastoral tribes. It was not until the Warring States period that nomadic peoples such as the Xiongnu as well as the Linhu and Lofan, who would later join the Xiongnu Confederation, also emerged in the north. Coincidentally, early nomadic peoples in Western Eurasia, such as the Scythians, Cimmerians, and Sarmatians, also emerged, and were active from the 8th to the 3rd centuries BC, fully demonstrating the consistency in the spread of technology and culture across the Eurasian steppe. Historians emphasize that the formation of nomadic societies did not mean that people abandoned other forms of the economy. Extensive cultivation, forest harvesting, and metal smelting were all important supplements to the nomadic economy, and no nomadic society could exist without them. The problem, however, was that these sideline activities on the steppes could not meet the social needs. Nomadic people still had to obtain the essential resources from sedentary societies, and there were only two ways to acquire them, either through trade or through robbery. Trade is a legitimate business that requires credibility and bargaining power to back it. Robbery may seem like a cost-free endeavor, but also requires the support of strong military force. A crucial prerequisite for credibility and military power is organization. Nomadic societies were inherently decentralized and autonomous, so forming an empire was in principle a very difficult thing to do. However, if the sedentary societies they were facing were too unified, establishing a stronger political entity became an inevitable choice for the nomads.